Today we're gonna be learning, drawing, and we're gonna try to do this beautiful sketch of a mountain to first get started. So when you kind of see, when you're drawing something, what do you first do?
The two basics of drawing, or any art is you break down the picture into shapes. And the other important thing to think about is that, and I often have to convince my students that you have to get out of your head.
Yeah.
And you think you know what mountains look like, but if we're drawing a specific mountain, we have to look, and seeing and looking at where we're drawing is important too. So shapes and looking are the two big things. I also would encourage, we can get started here, is oftentimes my students, they'll go in really hard in the pencil, and commit to the shapes, but I want to go in really, really soft.
Like free flowing kind of?
Just really sketch it in, because then it's much easier to either draw over or erase. Got the outline here, we can sort of do the little trees down the bottom here. Even looser than that.
Looser? All right. No, it's just like an issue. Even when I write my name or signature, I'm just like, woo. So it's like, gotta let loose.
You have to commit. You have to, and then
you
can go in and go darker. I don't know how much can the camera see this?
Yeah.
If you ever want, you can hold up the.
Yeah.
We can look your progress.
I can. If I held it up, it would be too light. But in a minute after I get more details, and you just sort of go over the whole thing too.
Okay.
You're sort of looking at the whole drawing. You
the whole
don't
drawing.
Just like start in and complete this little bit. You're wanting to sort of
It's just kind of being aware of the surroundings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And put like layers, lots of layers.
Layers.
So the light layer, and then a little bit darker, and then we go in a little darker, and we can draw these little trees. What did Bob Ross call the trees?
Do you often, like when you're like outside, do you have a sketchbook usually with you for like ideas? I know we talked about that before. So do you, when you go on hikes or in nature, do you find yourself sketching a lot?
I always have a sketchbook with me. It's a combination of, notes from a meeting and sketching ideas, or sketching the latest sort of mural thought I have. I in my past, I have taken them on walks and hikes, but with a family, my backpack is mostly full of granola bars and water.
How do you map it out exactly?
Well, the same way that we're doing
right
this.
now, yeah.
So I had a very loose. I actually used chalk, because
wow.
pencil is sometimes the paint doesn't cover it as much. And I would sketch it, and it's also super easy to erase. So if I messed up, I would just erase it.
Well, that makes sense, because sometimes even when you're writing or working on art, like something looks so good in your head, and then when it's on the paper or it's shown, it's completely different, or it doesn't look as good.
Yeah, it's just like writing, where you're doing a rough draft, and then you're fine-tuning,
revision.
And art often happens in the same piece of paper, so you're just doing layers and layers. And, depending on the medium you're using.
When I've done dance things or art things with kids, they're way more willing to like be bad at it than adults.
I agree.
Yeah.
Adults are too, they get self-conscious.
Yeah.
It's really sad that
even me, I'm like self-conscious now, because I haven't drawn in years, as you can clearly tell right now with the work that I'm working on. It's been a while. I've just been doing. But do you believe in the phrase, like, you don't have to be good at something to enjoy it?
Oh yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree with that. And I agree. I think that it's often a lot about the process.
Yeah.
It's not just sitting and drawing if you like it.
Are you like someone, when you're working on an art piece, do you methodically set up time, or do you get like creative bursts of energy? Like, how do you work on things usually?
A little bit of both. But this painting, I'd only take like 30 minutes because I put a layer on and then I step away and let it dry and then come back. So it didn't need to be a big, I couldn't have done it in a big block of time because again, I needed to let everything dry.
Do you show your artwork usually to other people when you're in the midst of it, or do you wait till it's done?
Well, that is actually an interesting thing about painting public artwork, which I had to get used to because I usually in the past have waited until I'm all done.
Yeah.
But when you have to leave a painting half done out in the middle of the public, it's quite vulnerable.
I do agree with you about like the portfolios, like where people have artwork they present and present it that way, because that is like a style of, you know, showing your knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, like in writing classes where I've like written articles or written things and then we revise them, work on it and present it. I think that's a way of showing intelligence, just like exams are. Well, I was reading a book by this music producer and he was talking about artists and musicians, and he said sometimes when you work on an art piece, you could think it's your best and it may not get the recognition, but that doesn't necessarily mean it isn't your best work. It could just be when it came out, people's moods during that time. And I was like, that's so true. Sometimes we really sometimes I've worked on things, I'm like, this is my best work. It doesn't get as much attention as something that I felt like, oh, this isn't my best. But then at the end of the day, it's like your opinion that you should care. I don't know, has that ever happened to you where you've worked on something or something you didn't feel like was the best, but it got more, I don't know.
Yeah, I also feel like there are opportunities in everything.
Yeah.
Something that may not have gotten the credibility, but it also may have connected you with somebody or some opportunity that you never knew was, and then that's a jumping off point for something else. A friend of mine just, she stepped away from her job of 20 years and she was a little spooked. And I said, just say yes to different opportunities and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And who knows what that will bring.
Yeah. I feel like when you do like any creative thing, like whether it be in a class or the utility boxes where everyone can see it, like that's a whole type of like vulnerability. Cause I could like when she works in the utility boxes, like we all watch it, like me and my friends or like coworkers, when we see it, we watch it in awe. But I could always think like if I was working on something in a public space, I'd always be wondering, what are people thinking? And like, it's kind of like I think it's a confidence builder in a way when you work on those things.
Definitely, especially that one, which is so centralized.
Yeah.
The one on Crosby was, lots of cars were driving by, but they were hardly noticed. But.
Well, I think it was like the details. When you said really look at a picture, I still need to wrap mine up eventually. But no, when I was thinking about it, if you look at it from far away, you wouldn't notice like, oh, there's these that are going on, like how the trees are slanted this way and all like the details. But like, because I did it harder, but if I had done it lighter, then the trees would have probably ended up better because they look like broken palm trees or stuff like that.
Also, another thing that is sort of hard to break, like you went in and you did every single pine needle.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do that. That's a hard thing to sort of separate.
Yeah.
It's to just make the sort of essence or like the shape.
How are you able to do, I think this part was, I feel like that was hard for me to visually like think about how I was gonna go about that.
I can show this again.
Yeah.
So these, you just break this down. It's not a mountain anymore. It's all of these shapes. So there's like a, a triangle here and another sort of rectangle shape here and another triangle, and you just break it down into these shapes. And then another sort of square shape here. So if you just break down into those shapes, and then you can transfer. There's another cool way that I actually just did for this landscape painting. If you really want to get exactly the replica, is you take a grid, like in math class you paper, and you grid this drawing, and then you grid the paper. So then you go, it's like a chart or something like that, where you go 1 and 1, and then you'll have 1 square, and then all you have to do is concentrate on this little bit.
All right.
And that's a way of really honing in, and then you really only see shapes.
Mm-hmm.
You can break it down a bunch easier too. So there's lots of different.
Yeah.
We're just scratching the surface.
We're scratching the
Lots of different,
surface. Yeah.
Techniques.
I think sometimes like the way I see things is I always really like super detailed art, like where it's exactly like it. But then I saw this picture where it took like one of Van Gogh's painting and they tried to like idealize it and make it look exactly how it would look realistic, and then it took the beauty out of it.
Yeah.
So like,
I think that's what, again, with adults,
yeah.
they have this preconceived notion that it needs to be perfect, but again, you can just.
Well, because like even if you look at the sky, it doesn't 100% look like a real one, but it looks much more beautiful the way it's like drawn and how you could see the clouds. So, yeah. Yeah. And this one is like, you were right about the pine needles. Trying to get every single one was a little too ambitious. Yeah. Well, I'm happy with the end result. I think it looks great. We got this under an hour. Thank you for joining me, Sarah, and I'm excited to see you guys next episode.